I gave them a pair of Martins to put on it, and I'll see what it sounds like. Shabbat Shalom. 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 Shir Hamalot. Shir Hamalot. B'shuv Adonai. Et Shivat Zion. Hayidu Lechonim. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. We are so delighted to be here welcoming in Shabbat with both everyone here in this room and everyone joining us online. My name is Rabbi Alexandra Stein. I'm one of the clergy here, and I am delighted to be leading tonight with Jason Flatt, who is our wonderful song leader here at TRS. And he has a second half to his title that I've already left off with apologies. But he is a huge part of our music world in many parts of TRS, but not very often on Friday nights. So it's a treat to have him here with us this evening. We hope that whether you are here for the first time or the 10 millionth time, that there is a source of meaning and connection for everyone here tonight as we welcome in Shabbat together. And we're going to continue to do that now first through song.
I am thrilled to be here tonight, and we'll join together for Hine Matov. Hine Matov Umanayim, Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. 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 Hine Matov Umanayim, Shevet Achim Gam Yachad.
It is so good to be together, and as we welcome in Shabbat, we also welcome one another. So we'd love to invite you to turn to someone or a few people near you, maybe who you know, maybe who you don't. Introduce yourself if you don't know them and wish them a Shabbat Shalom. We are also joined on the Bima tonight by two wonderful B'nai Mitzvah students, Jacob and Jeffrey, who are both going to become Bar Mitzvah tomorrow morning. And as we welcome in Shabbat, it's an honor to invite their moms up to the Bima to help us with the lighting of the candles. So we would love to invite you each to come on up. And we would love to invite everyone here to join us by turning to pages 2 and 3.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter the sanctuary in need and all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to the acts of kindness, peace, and love.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lechad likner Shel Shabbat.
We continue now with the Kabbalat Shabbat section of our service, welcoming in Shabbat, first with the song Shir Hadash, which you can find, this is part of our Kabbalat Shabbat sequence, but you can find both the English and the Hebrew of the Julie Silver song on page 344.
Shiru Ladonai Kol Haaretz. Shiru Ladonai Shir Hadash. Shiru Ladonai Kol Haaretz. Adonai Shir Hadash. Sing unto God, all the earth, a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God, and we'll all sing along. All the earth, a new song unto God.
We continue now on pages 20 and 21 with Lachad Odi, our poem Welcoming in Shabbat. We'll be singing verses 1, 2, and 9, and it's our community's custom, if it's comfortable for you, to rise and face the back door when we get to verse 9 as we symbolically welcome Shabbat into our midst and into our lives. Page 20.
Yadadadadai Lachad Odi Yadadadadai Likrat Kala Yadadadadai P'nei Shabbat P'nei Shabbat Nikabela Yadadadadai Lachad Odi Yadadadadai Likrat Kala Yadadadadai P'nei Shabbat P'nei Shabbat Nikabela Shamor v'zachor B'dibor echad Ishmiyanu El Hamyuchad Adonai echad U'shemo echad L'shem ultiferet V'lithilah Yadadadai, yadadadai l'charodi. Yadadadai l'krat kala. Yadadadai p'nei Shabbat. P'nei Shabbat nikabela. L'krat Shabbat. L'krat Shabbat. L'chu v'nilcha. Ki mikor habaracha. Merosh mikedem nesucha. Sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila. Yadadadai l'charodim. Yadadadai l'krat kalam. Yadadadai p'nei Shabbat. P'nei Shabbat nikabela. Boi v'shalom. Ateret bala. Gam b'simcha u'tzoholam toch emunei am sigulam mo'ichalam mo'ichalam. Yadadadai l'charodim. Yadadadai l'krat kalam. Yadadadai p'nei Shabbat. P'nei Shabbat nikabela. Yadadadai l'charodim. Yadadadai l'krat kalam. Yadadadai p'nei Shabbat. P'nei Shabbat nikabela.
We continue with the Baruch Hu, our call to worship on page 28. And if it's comfortable for you, I invite you to rise.
Yadadai dai dai. 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 Baruch Hu et Adonai hamivorach. Baruch Adonai hamivorach le'olam va'ed. Le'olam va'ed. Yadadai, yadadai, dai, dai. 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 Yadadai, dai, dai.
We continue together in English on the bottom of page 31. This is an hour of change. Within it, we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, my sibling, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, my sibling, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv arabim. We continue now with the Shema on page 34. Shema Yisrael
Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
Please be seated. We continue with the V'ahavta on page 36. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'kol levavcha uv'kol nafshecha uv'kol meodecha v'hayu hadavarim ha'eleh asher anohi mitzavecha Hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam levanecha, v'dibarta ba'am, v'shivtecha v'veitecha, uv'lechtecha v'derech, uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha, u'kshartam leot al yadecha, V'hayu letotafot b'neinecha, uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha, leman tizkeru, v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'yitem kedoshim le'Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, lihiot lachem Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. Adonai Elohechem emet. Please join me on the top of page 39 as we move towards the Michamocha. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there, except by joining hands, marching together. We continue on the top of page 40.
Michamocha ba'elim Adonai, Michamocha nedar ba'kodesh, Michamocha ba'elim Adonai, Michamocha nedar ba'kodesh. Nora tehilot, osef elem, Nora tehilot, osef elem, Adonai imloch leolam va'ed. Malchutecha ra'u banecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, ze'elianu ve'amru, ze'elianu ve'amru, Adonai imloch leolam va'ed. Yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai. Yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai.
We continue now with the Hashkivenu, our prayer for safety and protection and well-being, and we enter the evening and always. The Hebrew of the full prayer is on page 42 in your prayer books, and I think that the words that include some of the English of the prayer we'll be singing are in your program.
They are indeed. Hashtivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashtivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim.
And Vishamru on page.
I love Vishamru. It's a little reminder to like take a break for Shabbat, but this melody, which I don't know if everyone will know it, you'll catch on. It's like a reminder to me that sometimes a little break can mean a little party, a little groove, a little hip shaking, foot stomping, hand clapping. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et hashabat la'asot et hashabat lidorotam. Veridolam Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et hashabat la'asot et hashabat lidorotam. Veridolam Beini ubein b'nei Yisrael Oti leolam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et hashabat la'asot et hashabat lidorotam. Veridolam Hisheshet Yamim Asa Adonai Et Hashamayim Ve'et Haaretz. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et hashabat la'asot et hashabat lidorotam. Veridolam Vayom Hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash Shabbat vayinafash. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et hashabat la'asot et hashabat lidorotam. Veridolam Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et hashabat la'asot et hashabat lidorotam. Veridolam.
In a moment, we'll continue with the tefillah, which is a very long prayer that starts on page 46. Often in our community, we begin, as we will tonight, by chanting the first few pages of this out loud, and then sometimes we go silent, sometimes we read some poems that are part of it, or we read some of the prayers. What we'll do tonight is chant the first three, a little more than three, the first 4 pages of this together, the first 3 blessings of the tefillah, which contain a lot of our hopes for possibility in our world together. And then we'll take a moment for silent prayer, and you can either continue to read through some of the prayers on the subsequent pages on your own, or just to be with the prayers and thoughts of your own heart. And we'll announce that when we get there as well. So if it's comfortable for you, I will invite you to rise. We're on page 46.
Adonai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Hasadim Tovim, v'Konei Hakol, v'Zocher Hasdei Avot Imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei Bneihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magin, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham, Ve'ezrat Sarah. Page 50. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol, Atah Rav Le'Hoshia, Mori Hatal, Mechalkel Hayim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayim Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Bal Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Menit Umechayet, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah l'chachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. 52. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, U'kdoshim b'kol yom, Yehalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
We take a moment, either standing or seated, for silent prayer, the words on the next few pages or the words in your heart. When we come back together, we will be on page 62.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל.
We take a moment now, as we do in each service, having prayed for peace, to also pray for healing for people in our lives who we know and love and might be thinking of, healing for people far away who we may or may not know but feel connected to. In our community this week, some of the names of folks that I have right now that I know people are thinking of include Alon ben Barbara, Dora bat Shoshana Vishlomo, Eli Bailey, Fumahana bat Hinda Yenta ve'Israel Pavel, Aviva Breen, Elizabeth Drabkin, Barbara Green, Blair Hannigan, David Loftman, Judith Loftman, Ellen Morgenstern, James Palumbo, Margie Reisberg Goldstein, and Ina Strickarts. If there is someone else you are thinking of who you'd like to speak their name aloud to the room so that we can all hold them in our hearts in this moment when we're hoping for healing, I invite you to do so as my hand moves around the room. Mishaberach Avotenu v'Imotenu Avraham Yitzhak v'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah Hu Yivarach et Kol HaCholim Ha'ele HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachamim Alehem Lahahalimam Ulaharpotam Ulahahazikam Vayishlach Lehem Mehera Refuah Shlema Min Hashamayim Refuat HaNefesh U'Refuat HaGuf Hashta Ba'agalau Vizman Kariv V'Nomar Amen. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless and heal all those who are ill. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit as we say together, Amen. And we join in the sung aloud words of the Mishaberach on the middle of page 253.
Mishaberach imotenu lekor habracha leavotenu refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
As those of you who have been to some of our summer services have heard, every summer we spend the time for the Devar Torah, the Word of Torah, talking about a theme. And this year's theme is This Week in Jewish History. We've talked about a wide range of topics in this theme, and many cool things happened this week in Jewish history. In recent times, this week marks, among other things, the anniversaries of the beginning of Justices Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Alana Kagan's start of their work on the Supreme Court. Not interestingly, some of the older Jewish justices, like from longer ago, who apparently started in June, but apparently more recently they've been starting in August. The anniversary of the founding of the oldest Jewish community in Cuba, the anniversary of someone patenting what would later become Wi-Fi, and more. However, in deep Jewish time, the kind that stretches back thousands of years, if perhaps a bit imprecisely relative to our own calendar, this week is important for a totally different reason. We are currently inside the 9 days that precede Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av, the 9th of the Jewish month of Av, is the date on the Jewish calendar on which, according to the Mishnah, the first and second temples were both destroyed, hundreds of years apart, and also hundreds of years before the Mishnah was written. It has also come to be a catch-all day when other disasters are remembered and mourned. Through fasting, the chanting of the Book of Lamentations, which is a description in the Bible of that first destruction and what people sort of felt and did in its aftermath, and general solemnity. The 9 days leading up to Tisha B'Av commemorate the 9 days of the siege of Jerusalem's gates before they were breached. This week in Jewish history, then, right now in those 9 days, we're in a time period of anticipatory grief over feared disaster. This sounds very cheerful, right? Depending on how you are spending your summer, it may also sound a little discordant. If it does sound discordant, that's not just a quirky fact specific to you. It is also deeply rooted in Jewish history in its own kind of interesting way. The early Reform movement had a very ambivalent relationship to Tisha B'Av because they did not believe, as many of us also do not believe, that it would be a positive good for the temple to be rebuilt and animal sacrifice reinstated. They thought, we don't want that to come back, so maybe we shouldn't be mourning the end of that time period. Maybe we should be embracing the time we're in now. Many Reform communities totally let go of Tisha B'Av, and some, like ours, have a more seesawing relationship to it, marking the day of mourning on some years and not on others. And parenthetically, I'll say that if you're interested in Tisha B'Av observance, Cantor Mikely and I would love to see you this coming Tuesday night. It can also be theologically complex for a different reason, which is that in the Mishnah and the Talmud, which were written, the Mishnah about 1,800 years ago and the Talmud about 1,500 years ago, the way they made sense of the destruction that had befallen them because two different empires had invaded them, presumably, we would say probably for whatever reasons those empires had, right? They went in because they wanted to. But the way that sort of ancient Jewish people made sense of this destruction and loss was to say that maybe they had somehow brought it in on themselves through their own internal strife, which I think is a very complicated thing for people to hear in the 21st century. In some communities, it's this invitation to think about, as people do very beautifully, and maybe some of you have been to Tisha B'Av services and commemorations like this, what are causes of sinat hinam, baseless hatred in our society today that we can try to mitigate? Who are people who are going through the kinds of disasters that the Book of Lamentations describes ancient people going through? And how can we sort of reach out to people who have become refugees, who have lost their homes? All of this is really kind of interesting work that can feel very meaningful to people, but it's rooted in this complicated idea that ancient people had, which I think, and historians think more importantly probably, was empowering for them in many ways because it helped them feel more control over it. But we might feel that they were kind of engaged in some amount of victim blaming, that they sort of thought the actions of these empires were their fault. So there are all of these reasons that the Reform movement has some amount of ambivalence about Tisha B'Av and kind of approaches it sometimes and backs away from it other times. However, it's not just the Reform movement that is a little iffy on Tisha B'Av. In many ways, in an era where throughout the Northern Hemisphere people go on vacation in July and August, a lot of the non-Orthodox Jewish world doesn't currently center Tisha B'Av, and that extends to Israel too. In my own life, I've noticed sort of more observances in Jerusalem, fewer in places like Tel Aviv. I bet people here could add to from their life experiences as well, and maybe they would agree or disagree, but so all over the Jewish world, many different ways of approaching this date, which is sort of seared in our minds in Jewish history in some ways. The one interesting exception to this kind of ambivalent approach is summer camp in the mid-20th century and beyond. In her book, The Jews of Summer, Summer Camp and the Jewish Culture of Post-War America, Dr. Sandra Fox notes that in Jewish summer camps of the 1950s and 1960s, as well as some for many decades after that, Tisha B'Av was huge. It seemed to meet a practical need camp directors had in two ways. It was often the only non-Shabbat Jewish holiday that fell during camp, and so it could be deeply embraced as this opportunity to dig into Jewish culture, even though it was also very sad and might have seemed at the outset kind of antithetical to the fun of camp. And in the mid-20th century especially, the themes of Tisha B'Av were often tied by summer camp directors of all stripes to the remembrance of the Holocaust. And then the emergence from the day of mourning was tied to a re-embrace of the joy of Jewish survival and Jewish life, including at that camp. And I'm seeing some nods, and who knows, perhaps in this room there are people who have stories or memories that either map onto that or intersect with that in interesting ways. In an interesting way, camp directors in their tying of Tisha B'Av, not just to lots of historical disasters, but specifically to the Holocaust, were actually aligned with a group of ultra-Orthodox folks who argued in the years before Yom HaShoah and International Holocaust Remembrance Day were each codified on different dates that relate to resistance or liberation in the Holocaust, that maybe Tisha B'Av would be the appropriate time for an annual Holocaust observance. So it was sort of, in the early years, a date people were considering for that eventually we let fall by the wayside. If you went to a Jewish summer camp that observed Tisha B'Av, or otherwise have spent time in a community for which it's an important day, the solemnity of the day, as well as the exaltation and ongoing survival that can come once the day is over, might be something you hold in your memories or even your present day experience. But for many of us, it's actually not. And if we do have a relationship with Tisha B'Av, it might be more checkered, marked by memories of years of observance and years of skipping over the day, doing something else instead. This year especially, speaking for myself, it's hard to fully want to lean into some of the messages of Tisha B'Av when I don't feel lacking in reminders, both of disasters that have fallen the Jewish people in Israel and around the world, and also of disasters that have fallen lots of other peoples. It doesn't feel like there needs to be an extra day to have an awareness of that. And yet, here it is, fast approaching. This year, one thing I'm holding on to is the words of Dr. Rachel Adler, who writes, "Hope is intrinsic to the theological work of lament." To lament, to take time out to mourn and to really honor and name loss, is also to protest, and implicitly to lean ever so slightly into the possibility that things might not always be as they are, that wrongs maybe can't be fully righted, things can't be undone, but other people can be brought in to help us build a different and more healed world together. That we need things that are wrong to change is the other thing that lament helps us lean into. And if we're not yet quite sure how that change might come about, we can at least cry out, this is wrong that this happened. And we can listen to each other and hear each other's cries and each other's pain. In the words of Rabbi Rachel Grant Meyer, after the 9th of Av comes the 10th of Av, the day on which we rise up from grief, and we might add precisely because we've taken time to be there and to listen to and honor one another, and rebuild our world as it should be. So this moment in Jewish history perhaps says to us or invites us to think, here we are in the midst of a lot of grief and complexity, maybe some of which we're presently in touch with, maybe some of which we're not. But we may also be on the precipice of the potential turning point. What would it be like if we each believed that that was possible? If we each believed, as the Jewish calendar invites us to lean into, and sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't. In the weeks before Tisha B'Av, we read a series of haftorot that are haftorot of rebuke or of warning. They're very sort of dark and thoughtful about the possibilities for things to go wrong. And in the weeks after Tisha B'Av, we read a series of haftorot that are about the possibilities of healing and growth. And so this moment in Jewish history asks us if we want, and like many people before us, we can also say no if it doesn't feel like a good thing to lean into right now. But it asks us, what would it feel like both to embrace our need to lament where it's there, and to embrace the possibility of change, where change might be possible going forward. So with that, I wish us all a meaningful Tisha B'Av, however it unfolds for you, including if it's a totally normal and unremarkable day. And we continue our service now with the Aleinu, a prayer of hope and responsibility for the possibility of change. It's on page 282, and it is a pleasure to invite the dads of our B'nai Mitzvah, to invite up Peter and Michael to help open the ark for us. And when the ark is open, we'll invite you to rise if it's comfortable for you.
Linu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, shehu notei shamayim v'yosed aretz, umoshav yikaro b'shamayim mima'al, ushchinatu zo begohei meromim, hu Eloheinu einod. V'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu.
Please have a seat, and we turn to page 287.
May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding. Loved each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand, but to conquer fear and doubt and despair.
Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with joy, of holiness, of freedom, and of peace.
V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol ha'aretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad.
We will continue in a few moments with the mourners Kaddish, taking time to think of people we have loved and lost who have touched our lives. As we move into that moment of memory, I invite you to take a moment or two with the thoughts in your mind, your heart, or with the words on the page, one of the poems beginning on page 288. We'll come back together in a moment. It is our community's custom to read aloud a list of the names of those that folks here in this room and in our broader community are remembering who died either in recent days or at this time in previous years, and to invite you, if you hear the name of someone you are remembering, to rise when you hear their name so that we can acknowledge you in our presence. And after I read the list of names I have here, I'll invite anyone who did not hear a name shared of someone they're thinking about or has a pronunciation to correct to add that name to the list. This week, in the period of Shloshim, the first 30 days following someone's death or following someone's funeral, our community is remembering the following people: Julian Eli Mendelson, grandson of Keith Mendelson and Rebecca Smith; Larry Rosenthal, husband of Bonnie and father of Ethan and Jack; J. David Roja, husband of Carolyn and father of Rachel, Alexander, and Theodore; Sally Amster Arnstein, mother of Ari Perlman; George Pazdra, grandfather of Grace Wright Pazdra; and Isabel Melton, grandmother of Beckett Edelman. To these names, we add the names of those whose yahrzeit, the anniversary of their death, falls near this time: Ann Altman, Phyllis Bayer, Lois Beschgoder, Yetta Breitner, Olga Brilliant, Leah Bucksbaum, Matthew Carpolo, Charles Colby, Jay Comras, Manuel Comras, Hank Danisow, Joseph Davis, Gladys Dunhoff, William Dunhoff, Beatrice Eisner, Bertha Estra, Herman Gershwin, Judith Gimbel, Betty Goldberg, Barbara Goldlust, Annabelle Gordon, Richard Greenwald, David Harrison, Barbara Hawthorne, Mildred Hilborn, Harry Hochstein, Rigby Eisman, Lois Yvonne, Joe Kalmans, Bertha Kalmans, Anne Kaufman, Lillian Keel, Robert Klug III, Peter Crone, Henry Lager, Harry Lesney, Blanche Levy, Sidney Lipman, Adolph Mayer, Walter Merriman, Rose DeMea Nalowinski, Jack Petit, Claire Posner, Charlotte Romanowski, Dale Rimmer, David Rose, Abe Rosen, Lori Rubin, Marjorie Schneider, Marion Seif, Philip Sternberg, Marion Seif, Philip Sternberg, Eva Stock, Stuart Urbach, Estella Weckstein, Perry Warchowski, Norman Warchowski, Ora Winograd, Muriel Wolf, Melissa Beck Yasmin, and Thomas Ziegler. If you have a name to add or a pronunciation to correct, we would love to hear your loved one's name as they said it. Please do so as my hand moves around the room.
Innocent civilians of Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank. Shannon Hahn,
Jeannie Steinman. Julia Stein.
Zikronam livracha, may all of their memories be for a blessing. If it's comfortable for you, I invite you to rise in solidarity with our mourners on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shnei Rabbah, ve'alma tigrach yirtei v'yamlif malchutei, v'hayekon v'yomekon u'chayed chol beit Yisrael, ba'galav v'zman karim v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mivarach le'olam omei omaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shmeid kucha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbehata v'nechamata damiran v'yama v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom v'imrumav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. As together we say again, Amen. Please have a seat. It's now a pleasure to invite forward Bernice Perazzo, the co-president of Voters. Bernice, thank you so much for being here tonight and bringing greetings and announcements to our congregation.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
On behalf of the TRS Executive Board and the Leadership Council, I am honored to welcome you to our worship service tonight. A hearty mazel tov to Jeffrey Burke and Jacob Purdy and their families on their B'nai Mitzvah. It's great to be together, whether you are in person or joining us via streaming. If you are a Temple Road of Shalom member, it would be a joy to welcome you properly and tell you a little bit more about the wonderful community we live in. Please feel free to approach one of the clergy or me to say hello during the Oneg Shabbat reception after the service. Please see the inside of your program for a selection of the upcoming Temple programs. Details will be there about the high holidays, 5-7, 8-5, and the Tish B'Av observance that will be in there as well. Additionally, our entire program calendar and details can be found in the latest edition of The Connection, and it's also on our website. We hope to see you again soon. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much, and I'll just echo that we would love for everyone who would like to come join us at the Oneg and grab a little bit of food afterwards and say hello, but also no pressure if you're headed out to Shabbat dinner or to other things this evening. We're really grateful to have been able to spend time together this evening and building community and praying together. I also want to say a big thank you again to Jason Flatt, who joined us this evening and brought so much music to our Shabbat tonight. We are going to conclude our service first with the Kiddush, the blessing over the wine, which will be on page 5, and then with a closing song. it is a pleasure to invite forward our two wonderful B'nai Mitzvah students to help lead us in the Kiddush. And when we begin and turn to page 5, if it's comfortable for you, I'll invite you to rise.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho B'ahava uvratzon hinhilanu Zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit Ki hu yom techila l'mikra'e kodesh Zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim Kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha ve'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. L'chaim.
And we turn now to our closing song, Adon Olam, on page 321.
I'm not sure if we've ordered new grape juice since the school year, maybe. That's not true.
We hope we did. It's just not so good.
That's not true, don't worry. I need to find the words to Adon Olam. Here they are. I got it. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yetzir Nivra Liet Nasa V'hefsochol Azai Melech Shimoni Kra Yum dai 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 yum dai 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 yum dai 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 yum dai 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 yum dai 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 yum dai 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 ve'acharei kilot hakol levado yimoch nora ve'hu haya ve'hu hoved ve'hu yehyeh b'tifara yum dai 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 yum dai 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 yum dai 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 ve'hu echad ve'ein sheni ve'hamshilo le'hahira ve'lireishit ve'litachnit below ha'oz ve'kam Yisra yum dai 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 yum dai 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 yum dai 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 ve'hu eli ve'hai go'ali ve'tzor hebli ve'etzara ve'hu nisi umanos li minat kosi v'yom ekra yum dai 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 yum dai 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 yum dai 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 Beyado Ha'iruvni Ve'et Ishan Adonai li velo yirai. Yum dai 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 dai, yum dai 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 dai, yum dai 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 dai, dai 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 dai, yum dai 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 dai, yum dai 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 dai, yum dai 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 dai, dai 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 dai.
May this Shabbat be for us and for all the world a Shabbat of connection, a Shabbat of joy, and most of all, a Shabbat of peace. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.